and get this over on Instagram too. Okay. William, Boyne, welcome. Welcome. Great to have you here. Yeah. Oh, wonderful message from Boyne. Hello, Gary and Lars. Welcome. Awesome. Okay, so we should be online everywhere. Let me just double check real quick, make sure that LinkedIn's working, because sometimes that one gets a little bit sticky. And then Lars will have you do a quick little intro in just a second. Be online everywhere. All right, cool. I think it's working. All right, Lars, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, Gary. My name is Lars Heimsath. I'm with Tulaco. I'm the head of growth there. We're Tulaco. We're a software development shop based in Santa Monica. Have been around for 15 years, and we basically have 200 plus software engineers across 6 delivery spots, mostly in Eastern Europe. But we recently also opened one delivery spot in Argentina, just in terms of time zone wise, with the West Coast here in California. That seems to be working really well. We focus with our offering specifically on the startup system, the startup ecosystem. Historically, have grown within the Santa Monica, LA startup ecosystem, but since then ventured out and basically have clients all over the US as well as Europe. Um, yeah, have been around for 15 years. Historically, we've grown basically 95 to 90% of our clients are coming through client referrals. We develop anything from anything in the entertainment industry, health tech, um, all kinds of verticals. We don't necessarily have a specific niche. We actually also have a satellite office at the Hub 101. In case anybody's ever in the neighborhood there. So stop by there. We have an office there, a dedicated office. Myself and some of my team members that are in the area, in the Thousand Oaks area, are often there. Yeah, that's pretty much who we are. Tulaco building software from a concept, turning concepts into MVPs, building full-on projects with our own project management teams. We have about 10 software architects and technical project managers here in the US, but the rest of the team is basically offshore or nearshore with our new location in Argentina. And also do team augmentation. So if anybody's ever looking for any help with an existing team, scaling existing teams, we're offering that as well. Prior to joining Tulaco, I was actually in New York, worked for a fintech called Investars. We were building software applications for Wall Street, have been basically in the software development space and tech space for 20 years plus, initially in New York, and then moved over to the West Coast about 10 years ago. And since then, I'm calling LA my home.
Awesome. Well, welcome to LA. Hopefully, yeah, things aren't being too crazy for you. But yeah, anyone is interested in asking for any fire resources, let me know. I've compiled like a short little list. But also, don't be shy about reaching out to your city office, your county office, or any of your representatives at the state or federal level. All of them have been collecting a lot of great resources and setting up programs and grants to help with people. So, yeah, utilize them. That's why they exist. They're public servants. You're the public, so make use of their yeah offices. All right. With that said, Boyne, William, Reed, welcome. If any of you have questions, you can raise your hand. I'll bring you up on the stage. You can use your microphone. Camera's optional, and you have a conversation. Ask questions. If you want to use chat for whatever reason, you can't use your microphone. You don't want to come on stage. Just use the chat. I'll relay questions. I'll read them, and then yeah, we can get them answered. In the meantime, while we wait for our guest to ask some questions. Um, I'm crazy dog. I'm curious with with
Background.
with your background experience and working with a number of different founders and companies. Uh, what is your favorite challenge to help them with in either the early stage or a little bit later on?
I think like our strength is really like being there from the start, figuring out the initial challenge from maybe somebody having an idea or a concept or like trying to build a proof of concept. Oh, that's great timing here. Sorry, guys. Basically turning a problem into an actual product. We have been doing this basically with our two co-founders. They themselves, startup entrepreneurs, built their own companies from scratch, and then develop basically the experience of basically launching something from scratch and starting it up into an actual product offering and scaling it. I've done the same with our my previous company in New York. We initially started out of sort of the traditional, out of the living room garage startup and scaled it into something and had partnerships with all kinds of financial firms, bulge market firms, large investment banks in New York. So really like I'm really interested in I like hearing new ideas, new concepts. I find that very interesting and challenging what people come up with. Um, Problems and pain points that they identified or think they identified, and then really trying to validate it, see how we could turn that into a product offering. I'm really excited about that. I really enjoy that. I think I was never really the guy that wanted to work really for a large enterprise. I really liked the startup world and was really fascinated by that from the beginning.
I want to dig a little bit more into those strategic partners that you had established with the company. A lot of early founders, they overlook those opportunities or strategies, especially when they're trying to figure out going to market or pursuing product market fit. I'm curious, what sort of methodology and best practices can you share for founders trying to identify strategic partners and how to approach them?
The strategic partners, well, I mean, I think the best is really having those strategic partners that are in the space, that have their pulse on the industry that you might be trying to penetrate or that you're trying to offer a solution for. Having those as a feedback loop, I would think is just really highly valuable. They have the network where you can actually test your concepts, try to validate them, get market feedback. Um, Potentially pivot or adjust your idea and concept. I think that that network is like hugely valuable just to have sort of the pulse on the industry or the validation loop that is really necessary at the beginning to make sure that if you venture out and go out there and build a tool or want to build a tool that you're actually addressing a pain point in the industry and that you have a mechanism that allows you to validate that and constantly collect feedback and adjust if necessary.
Before reaching out to a strategic partner, um, a lot of times a case study can help, and trying to identify the right type of a strategic partner based on what size company they are and what size you are, and try to assess the risk that you might be bringing to them. A case study can help with that. What kind of metrics do you find most important if you are going to put together a case study and utilize that as part of a pitch for a strategic partner?
I mean, for our case studies that we're doing for Tuluka right now, it's really more like highlighting our I would say our expertise and the the different types of industries that we've been touching and that we've been building products to. I'm not sure I can really I have a specific metric that I'm can apply to like filtering or validating your expert network and partners or strategic partners that you're probably trying to find or trying to identify. I'm not sure I can answer that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that you're kind of calling attention to how important establishing the correct context is around what case study you're going to be putting together, the metrics that you're going to utilize in relation to the audience, the specifics partner that you're trying to connect with, and try to understand, what's going to matter most to them with what you were saying earlier in regards to, the type of value and benefits that you can bring to the table through that partnership. Reed, you got your hand up. I'm going to bring you up on stage so you can ask some questions. You should have an invitation right now. There we go. All right. Can we hear you, Reed? It doesn't show your microphone muted, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, same here.
Hmm.
Hello?
There we go.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
No
No
worries.
worries.
Been a long while since I've used this is the Circle platform, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Okay,
is.
cool. And I want to see if I can get my camera on. It's always a good. Oh wait, that's not. Let's see. Come on, come, come, come. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be letting me do the camera. Okay, sorry about that. So thank you so much for organizing this, both Gary and Lars. Um, so sorry, I'm just trying to organize my screen here. So Lars, I'm really curious, who do you look for when someone approaches you to collaborate on a startup idea? For context, I'm very new to the world of startups, currently in career transition and just have an idea. Also working on a prototype, something that's functional and that people can use. So it's not just an idea. But I'm just very new to this space of startups and just trying to make connections with people and understand how it works. So for you, who do you look for in trying to support someone with a startup?
In general, really, like anybody that has something that we can help with software development. So, like initially, we for example offer free MVP scoping sessions where if somebody doesn't necessarily have a technology background themselves, we actually offer like a 3-4 hour session where we sit together with someone, help them to scope out what could be part of the what is the actual product, what could be part of an MVP that could be put out, how long would it take in terms of like specs and versioning, how long would it would take to get an MVP off the ground in terms of timeline, potential resources, features that should be part of the MVP, and all the full features of the whole vision that can be maybe pushed to later versions. So in general, we cater to all kinds of industries. We don't have a specific sector or niche or vertical. Uh, One of our biggest or one of our really strong points that we pay attention to is like just cultural fit or fit between the two entities. Because what is really important for us is not just like turning over a project, working on something for 3 months, but we want to be long-term partners for the organizations and companies we work with. So at the beginning, we often really sort of like a freemium version where we if there's an interest and if there's a potential fit that we can help with getting something off the ground or helping somebody to scale. We offer like a 3 to 4 weeks trial version where we don't even put major agreements into place because it's as important for the partner as for us to make sure there's a long-term yeah, potential partnership possible. And if these like 3 4 weeks where we put a team together or put some resources, allocate them to a project or to a new partner, if those things work out, then we basically go back and prorate our agreements and start billing and actually bill for any services we provide before. But if things look like they don't are not working out, either for whatever reason the partner is not happy with our services, which I so far haven't experienced yet, or there are other reasons why things are not working out. We just separate our ways and everybody goes their separate ways and that's it. So it's like really just a good cultural fit that the two entities should work together. We have a good insight into what the vision is of the company, the founders, the product, and how we can help to build it and leverage it, and also a good fit between our engineers and our teams being able to report and communicate directly with the co-founders or founders. We sort of see ourselves as a direct extension of the individuals that are running the company. So it's not just like a service partner that builds something for 3 weeks, hands it over, and then we're gone, sayonara. But we're actually trying to become an integral part of the actual organization and grow with the company wherever possible.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah. So if you ever have an idea or you want to validate something, maybe just get a feel for what it would take to get maybe an initial MVP off the ground, or what it would take to take an MVP to the next phase, to the next stage. Happy to talk and as I mentioned in the intro, we have about 10 software architects and team leads here in the US that are helping us to interact with the clients. We just don't have our teams offshore. We can actually set up meetings in our offices here and sort of walk you through our vision of the development process, what we see as potential pitfalls, and help you identify a way forward.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm here in North Hollywood, and you're in Santa Monica, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But we
Cool.
also have an office in Westlake, a little satellite office. But anywhere we can meet up anywhere, set something up, and then take it from there.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Reed,
Absolutely.
how far along are you specifically right now with your idea, turning it from, intangible into tangible product in the market? And
Mhm.
what's like the number one challenge that you're kind of like dealing with right now?
Yeah. So I do have a rough prototype up online. It's on like a Google Cloud service, so the URL is very ugly and messy to look at. But if I were to share it, someone is able to go to the website, and it's for people to use an AI um, LLM model to help them be successful with a diet for managing a inflammatory bowel disease. And so I have personal experience with the diet and how difficult it can be in needing extra support. And with my experiments with this app, um, it can be extremely helpful. And so I have that prototype, and I have a version that's further developed except for the back end. And so I've struggled a little bit with, the login and authentication. And I'm currently going through tutorials and trying to teach all of that myself. And I've got ideas to expand the app to use vision. So reading ingredient labels and, are these ingredients allowed on this specific diet? Um, I also want to maybe fine tune the model because the diet is very, very specific in what is allowed and not. And some of these models, they're very intelligent. They understand the science behind it, and they try to convince the users that a certain food is allowed. And it makes a lot of sense, but according to the diet, it's extremely strict. If it's not on a list that was prescribed by the author, then it's not following the diet. So I need a way to like control the AI models to only follow that specific list. So I thought of maybe fine tuning it or using RAG. So those are the kind of challenges that I've been running into.
Okay. Yeah, no, sounds very interesting. And we've done some extensive work over the last couple of years in that space. Just basically building, training out our own models, plugging into existing models, and then building out the racks and would be happy to talk to you, maybe connect via LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn profile is in the profile somewhere on the events page. Happy to maybe see what we can do, how we could help you there, and it's even it's just an idea. What I mentioned, for example, with those scoping sessions that we do, whatever the outcome is, the product, like a Confluence page, a 1-2 pager, that's your product. We hand that over to you, and you can take that and run with it, or go somebody else, go to another vendor and check with them, or sort of verify it. So these scoping sessions, or these technical deep dive sessions that we offer there are basically the end product. Whatever comes out there is sort of your IP, and there's no strings attached. If we just take a look and chat a little bit more about what the challenges are that you're facing, and how one could potentially help there.
That sounds amazing. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. And I don't want to take up any more of your time. I'm sure other people have questions, but I really
Oh, that's
appreciate it.
great. No, thanks for your pain points and what the struggles are that you're running into when you're actually trying to get something off the ground here. I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Boy and William, if you want to jump on stage, raise your hand. If you want to use, chat, ask questions, ask follow up questions, share advice, insights, feel free to. Reed, yeah, we can keep going a little bit. I'm kind of curious, while we wait for others to chime in. Um, what's your background specifically? Because you're teaching yourself some of the back end development side of stuff. What's yeah,
Yeah.
your expertise?
Yeah. So I've always loved technology. I've always dabbled in, creating my own websites and maybe stealing a little bit of JavaScript from here and there. But this is the first time that I've really dedicated a couple months and hours every day to doing tutorials and just really applying that. So I taught myself the basics of React, JavaScript. So been working on the front end for a bit. I have a degree in information technology, and so I think that's really given me the foundations in terms of like where do I go to get. I'm incredibly resourceful. Um, I just have a way of finding the exact resources that I need when I need it. So let's see. I used to work in video game design,
Hmm.
and that's an incredibly technical work environment. So I've always been, through my education and careers, and most recently I worked in post production, and we used, Avid Media Composer, which is a very technical um, piece of software. So I've always been around technology. I'm very comfortable with it. Um, Hope that answers your question.
No, yeah, it definitely adds a little bit of insight, context to your situation. Um, yeah, I mean, you have all the tools to do a lot of this on your own, and Lars, you can chime in on this too. But you know, work with that prototype. Try to validate your core assumptions in regards to the effectiveness of the
Yeah.
tool. Like make sure that you do the quality assurance testing with some people, and try to find some people in your network that maybe aren't friends. Maybe they're like, someone knows someone that they can introduce you to that's a fresh connection. That's more likely to
Yeah.
hopefully give you a little bit uh, more honest feedback and insight on, you know, what they're dealing with and how they can utilize the tool and how well it's functioning for them. the type of experience they're having with it. And that's really what you want to focus on. Make sure that they're having an enjoyable experience with your product or service. They're getting benefits from that, and that's where value is going to be derived from. And I say this like often with these things, but it's a simpler framework to consider these things. And Lars, what kind of suggestions can you share in regards to them working towards that product validation and kind of iterating the product and ultimately putting themselves in the best position possible to work with someone like you or any other type of team or co-founder coming in or someone else like that?
Yeah, I mean, really making sure that the product is sort of addressing the core pain points of somebody that would be using it. I think from what I'm understanding from Reed, he's already sort of has a good handle on that because he might have been using the same concept himself. So like there's probably something like the pain points are been based on personal experience. Definitely also like as much as possible shop it around in terms of collecting additional feedback, running by the concept, the prototype, if it's just a Figma or similar, what the user experience is, what the path is for the user to go through the system, collecting as much feedback as possible to really get a good understanding of the core problem and what the product offering is supposed to solve. And then similar to what Gary said, like finding people outside of your friend zone that give you honest feedback and maybe like poke the finger a little bit in potential one-way streets that one can enter to or dead ends and really like keep an open mind when collecting that feedback, not necessarily be offended, but be open to it and then sort of see, okay, that's the feedback that I'm getting from somebody that's not necessarily in my friends group. I think that's definitely very important.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna drop a link to a book that might be helpful too when you're conducting those like user tests and getting that feedback. It's called the Mom Test. I haven't read it, but it's a frequent referral in these communities by other mentors that focus on customer research and all that fun stuff. It does a good job kind of teaching a framework to avoid asking questions that are going to produce bad data, either hypothetical questions or leading questions in other such scenarios like that. And also kind of focusing on people outside of, you know, that super biased kind of network. So yeah, definitely recommend that. Reed, I'm gonna move you down. If you got follow up stuff, feel free to raise your hand again or use the chat. I'm gonna bring up Boyne, and in the meantime, while Boyne's getting
Thank you.
situated, William asked a question. Lars, what are some notable industry changes that have impacted your business over the past 5 years?
Oh, hang on. Well, probably like William, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that? What you mean by that? Over the like notable industry changes.
Yeah, well, William, why you expand on contextualizing notable industry changes? Um, we'll jump over to Boyan while you're typing. Boyan, how you doing? Your mic's muted.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to interrupt whatever's going on, right? So yeah, so far so good. Safe from the fires. Hopefully everybody is for now safe from the fires, though the winds are kind of picking up a little bit. Um, well, nice to meet you guys. And last night, I don't recall if we have met in one of the meetups. You kind of seem familiar.
Yeah, I think we've met each other at the Hub 101. I think I've seen you there at
Yeah,
the most recent event that Kristen ran, their cohort that presented, I think mid-December, was it? Is that possible?
yeah. I think the face looks familiar. I was just
Yeah,
not
same
sure
here.
where we have met.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't, yeah, I don't think we spoke back then, but I happen to be also in the software business for good or for bad. Though in my case, I tend to deal a lot with hardware, as you may notice surrounding me. Uh, so what happens is among other things, I started 20 something years ago developing software libraries that I provide to other developers. And they are specialized in video, audio, digital signal processing, computer vision, AI, industrial control. I have been providing edge AI software libraries for like 15 years already, maybe even more. Uh, and I do also develop products for IoT. That's why I'm surrounded with a lot of IoT stuff as well. So I don't necessarily have a specific question, but I'm just thinking that we may be able, in some cases, to collaborate. In case you guys encounter any of those areas and you are short on expertise or resources, I may be able to provide some help, or vice versa, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
it
no,
always
absolutely.
goes both directions.
Now, like hardware, we're really like have no resources or background or anything we can loop in there when it comes to actual hardware. Anything in that space with our software offering, it's really just the delivery spots we have, mostly Eastern Europe, and the software skills that we have built up there over time. But definitely, when it comes to hardware or your experience there, I'm sure we'll run into each other again at the next event. We should definitely connect and chat more.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I don't want to take too much space here, but yeah, it was a floated idea. I sent you LinkedIn connect just before the event, and yeah, we can of course chat on LinkedIn. We can discuss it in other forms online. But if Gary has any suggestion for a cool discussion, we can have some cool discussion while unless somebody else is raising hands.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, this kind of brings up an interesting kind of yeah point of discussion. So, like, I see a lot of uh, service providers from different fields of development, whether it's front end, back end, UX, UI, whatever. And oftentimes, freelancers are looking to pick up more work, and I am often suggesting that they reach out to different agencies, established agencies, different dev shops that are in their area, and let them know, hey, if you ever have overflow work, you don't have the resources for a certain job, a certain client, here I'm available. So I'm curious, Lars, from your point of view, running an agency, a dev shop, what are some best practices uh, to establish that type of relationship, like we're seeing right here in real time, to really help you understand where a person can slot in when you need to get those resources. Like, what like kind of way do you like them to like reach out to you, contact you, email you? What sort of like assets should they be providing to demonstrate, their resume, their skills, portfolio, those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, like that's actually a really good point. Just to like go back maybe a step in terms of like sometimes we have projects in where either it's not necessarily our tech stack where we specialize in. For example, sometimes we Ruby on Rails. It's not really our strong point when it comes to resources that we have, or we often run into projects with Python, especially when it's two co-founders with a tech background and they build sort of their core product offering or the initial product offering based on Python. We have Python resources, but it's definitely also not our strong point. And in those situations, we either look how we can loop in one of our existing network partners to help and jump in here, or try to find somebody that we've worked with in the past that can help here. And that goes both ways. It's works the same for us that we have networks partners, other agencies that are in the space that are sometimes not able to maybe fill a certain tech stack, or they at that point with the timeline that the lead is working with are not able to fill that. Let's say if somebody's looking for the resource, often the case yesterday, and they call you today and they want to have it filled. And we try to keep our bench in terms of resources that are unutilized at around maximum 10%. So 5% is ideal. And obviously then when there's a short time period to kick off a project, it takes a little bit longer to pull somebody new or hire somebody or source somebody new. Then we often work with partners. And if we know, okay, this is sort of your specialization or this is what you work with, we're often reaching out to others where we try to fill a role or fill a technology that we can do and can work with at that point. And that always works both ways. Similar to what Boyan had mentioned here right now, that if we have somebody right now, for example, that requires his expertise, I would be more than happy to loop him in because we really want to work with the lead. But on the other hand, the most important thing is really that we help them. And if we can't help them, we try to get back to them and answer that as soon as possible to really not be a roadblock. And maybe down the line something is going to work out, but in this case we really want to be for the partner or for the lead and help them right away. So like anybody that's in the network that has a tech stack that might not fit or that we can fall back on in case there are situations like that, that's always appreciated.
Awesome, good insight to have. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Boyan,
William's question here, I don't know, maybe if we want to jump back there right now with COVID and a lot of free capital floating around past the pandemic, and then with interest rates going up, definitely has impacted our space as well. So a lot of founders are coming to us. They just find it much harder to raise capital for ideas for which they would have probably easily found investors, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago, easily capital. Overall, I feel like it takes a little bit longer to get these projects off the ground. Even maybe they have it already spec'd out properly and they have the documentation in place where we wouldn't have to build the sort of groundwork to put specs in place and scope the product. It just takes longer really for new founders or that people with not necessarily the access to the investment network to be able to find their the funding for their capital for their projects and ideas. For us, that has meant that it takes longer to, as I mentioned, to get these projects off the ground. And we've also expanded a little bit more to balance that and diversify our portfolio. We're focusing a little bit more on small to medium-sized businesses. But our heart and our core in terms of our culture, where we're coming from as Tulaco, that these startups and the startup ecosystem is still our specialty. It's taking longer to get these projects off the ground.
Yeah,
and then not only Boyan, not only the first round and collecting the first round of capital, but then follow up seed rounds and investment rounds is just taking longer, harder questions being asked. That's sort of what we've been seeing. It's still possible, it's still doable, but overall it feels like it's just taking longer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you don't mind to talk a little bit about the technology stack that you're using and the areas of development you're specialized in. I'm pretty sure people will be interested to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, like tech stack wise, like front end, we do a lot of React, back end Node.js. That's sort of we have a lot of .NET and C# historically, even with the guys that I've worked with that are located in Eastern Europe when we built our tools back in mid 2004, 2005. There's a lot of like .NET and C# that was initially used. So there's we have some clients still that are more on the enterprise level. They have a lot of need for that. But everything, I think it's really like Ruby and Rails and Python. That's sort of our two pain points that I often run into when I have leads where I feel like I already know right away. Okay, it's with Python. That's going to be hard because the resources we have with Python, they're usually already like committed to a project, and they are not necessarily sitting on the bench, or they would be harder to free up for a new lead coming in. Um, that's sort of I think what I see in tech stack. But we're pretty with our 200 guys. We're trying to diversify the offering fairly well. But those two that I mentioned, they're sort of our pain points.
I'm curious, kind of like related to William's question with trends and changes. Are you seeing the tech stacks evolve? I know like there's always these kind of moments as technology changes where a certain tech stack will get real popular, and a lot of like the younger generation will buy into that real intensely, and that leads to a lot of like new startup founders working with these like different tech stacks and these like different like little cycles. So I'm curious, like, are you seeing any changes like that?
Um, Not necessarily that. I mean, it's like a big wave of things that I see is emerging. I think the core technologies that we've been using are still utilized. I wouldn't be able to say there's a huge change yet. Like I do feel like with a lot of, I think I hinted that earlier, with a lot of founders that have a tech background, they sort of built their core solution, or they put sort of the first offering together, and sometimes maybe collaborate together to get something up and running fairly quickly on Python. It's fairly easy to use, especially the back end, and then they're facing the challenge to potentially scale it. But more specifically with us, maybe because of our lack of deep bench on Python, which that might be more on us than on the technology. But I don't see necessarily like a huge change yet. So
Right on. That's good to know. That's interesting. Yeah, that things have been pretty stable the last few years here. William, I saw you typing something else, so feel free to like follow up, or you can always jump on stage too if you're interested in that. Um, yeah. Yeah, let me check other stuff. But yeah, Boyne, if you got any follow ups, feel free.
Maybe a discussion. From what I hear, your specialty is mainly in web development for the most part. Do you? I mean, what other areas of development you guys cover? Again, I'm pretty sure those type of questions everybody in the community here would be interested to know.
yeah, any kind of web applications, mobile solutions, platforms like SaaS-based models. It's really all over the place. Like anything software related, we can really handle. And your expertise with the angle of hardware, when hardware comes in, we are sort of more often focused on the actual web application, the connectivity with hardware when it comes to like mobile phones and the what is like within the mobile ecosystem. That's still really our core business. But I think the sort of environment you're operating in, with the connection between software and hardware, the connectivity there, we don't have that many clients really historically in that space.
Yeah, anything in terms of video, audio, digital signal processing.
Yeah.
You don't do any of that.
We work with streaming platforms. We like gaming platforms. I'm sure if you know Generation Esports or Wizard. Um, Comcast is one of our clients. So like they're in that space. The actual platforms that we're building there. But I'm maybe when it comes to your space, the direct connectivity with the hardware, we would always have to loop in a partner there, or the lead that comes to us is sort of then in that space. But it's not that we necessarily have the hardware guys and in our delivery spots. The actual software component, any platform solutions, absolutely.
I'm curious, since you got a background in project management and it's kind of what you do every day, and Boyne's on the call right now. So Boyne,
Well, these days it's more in actually like business development, finding leads and finding new clients that are looking for our services. But yeah, historically.
well, I'm still gonna lean on your background experience then. So Boyne often is managing a couple different ventures at the same time. Like Boyne, you can expand a little bit more, but just to summarize, there's two essentially like more established companies that Boyne has. There's a new one that Boyne's working on utilizing technology that he's developed to launch a new company around. Um, a common like theme with Boyne, myself, many others, as founders, entrepreneurs, is managing time and managing tasks. I'm curious, what sort of best practices, suggestions can you share to help people do a little bit better job of identifying what those top priorities should be and avoiding all the other distractions to get in the way of getting things that need to be done.
Mm-hmm. Well, it probably depends a little bit on the projects. It's hard to generalize, I would say, but we have a rule of thumb maybe for our teams internally and our resources that we assign to multiple projects where required. The maximum we do there is basically 2 projects that our resources would be involved in. So basically 4 hours for one client part time and another 4 hours for another project. We have seen over, unless it's maybe like a TPM or just a project manager that is working with me on multiple leads or managing existing clients, they dedicate up to 3 hours per client per day. But that's sort of the max 3 different clients that they're managing. With the actual resources that we putting on projects, we noticed over time, and that's sort of our experience with a split 4 hours max between 2 projects. That's sort of the best outcome that we can see. I think it's if you're a founder and if you're in the startup world, then that might be different. I think maybe Boyan can elaborate a bit more on how many projects he's managing and what the pitfalls could be there. But when it comes to actually applying our resources, we've seen, and our engineers, we've seen that sort of the 2 is the max between those 2 projects, and also expectations from clients when it comes to availability for the different projects. I don't know, Boyan, how many projects like do you have right now on your plate? Like,
Slightly over 60.
yeah.
Yeah, I handle them all myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I use my own bag of tricks of how I can achieve that, but in essence, naturally, I focus on areas that can cover multiple projects simultaneously.
Yeah.
And my whole technology stack is designed around this having a very powerful central core functionalities that I can very easily adapt to specific areas. And then I spend a relatively small amount of time on each project to fine tune it or what have you for the specific purpose. And most of the time goes into core functionality development. And also the other thing, of course, is one of the things I have developed is a visual no-code software development tools that I develop and maintain, and then I use them myself, which they allow a project that typically would take weeks or months to be developed. It can be done in few minutes very often. So that allows me to be significantly more productive, but that also means that I have to invest a lot of time into those core tools to be developed. So again, I mean, I have my own my own way of handling with all of that.
Okay. From my perspective, the more contacts, the more network, the more leads we have, the better. But well, sorry about the dog again. But for the actual our engineers that we assign and allocate to projects, that's the two is the max, really, just to get the most value for our clients out of the resources that are dedicated to it. And they want we usually prefer the dedicated model where we assign resources specifically to one client, because our model, it allows to ramp on, ramp off fairly quickly. It's a short-term agreement. It's 30 days notice. So the immediate impact is available right away. And if the resources are not required on the project anymore, they can easily be ramped off, and we can allocate them to other projects.
Cool
I'm
insights.
sure there's a Bible out there too on like how to manage your project, manage your life, and
Yeah, I've been sharing a little bit. We got another mentor who's got a cool book that I've been reading.
okay.
Yeah, Mike Williams. I'll post the link in it. I posted it last office hours too. Reed Kimball says, "This has been great. I got to go in a few minutes. Thank you, everyone. Lars, I'll message you on LinkedIn to connect. Reed, thanks for being a part of this. Awesome hearing what you got working on, what you're working on. Feel free to use the forums on the community to share in the promotional channel if you want to help, or the feedback channel if you want some beta testers. Not sure what specifically dietary restrictions you're focused on. I got some experience, got IBS. I have to be on a low FODMAPs diet. I'm pretty sure plenty of people in the community are dealing with different stuff that might fall in line with what you're working on and be interested in trying it. So post about it. Also, feel free to use other channels to ask questions about anything else that relates to any aspect of your business. But yeah, thanks for being a part of this. Let's see here. Yeah, William, coming up on time, so if you got any final questions, follow-ups, feel free. William, I don't know if this got touched on. William also asked, has there been any change in terms of success of projects? So I'm curious, Lars, when you're working with a client that is trying to fundraise, what aspects are they looking to focus on to demonstrate success with that project and ultimately de-risk the deal for investors? What kind of insights can you share in regards to that?
No, I mean, it's probably more general that we I can talk about when it comes to follow-up funding of investors or new rounds that are being raised. But I think the immediate, I think the hyper growth, the phase of hyper growth and users at all costs, I think that's that time was probably more until 2020, 21, and more right now. I think investors are more focused on post revenue, seeing revenue, seeing I guess their investment being supported by revenue being generated, even on a low scale by a project. Maybe as a follow-up to what William had asked, in terms of change, in terms of success of projects, it's harder to get the projects into seed A, seed B, what comes, or in Series A, Series B, what comes afterwards. We see projects that have a lot of traction, but not necessarily generating the expected revenue, being put on ice, and it's harder for those investors or for the founders to find that follow-up capital that I had indicated earlier. So maybe if we have seen projects lasting with the Tula Core as an average, I think 4 to 5 years up to 2020. We are often the average time we have with clients is often maybe going down to like 3 to 4 years. We see that projects come and maybe go a little bit quicker than it used to be up to 2020 since when we started. That is something we have noticed. So slightly higher turnover maybe instead of the long engagement that we have. Obviously, the ones that are taking off, we're trying to be a part of the team long term, trying to provide value there long term. But the turnover is maybe slightly higher than it used to be. Turnover for us, as in Tulaco, being new customers we work with and new leads coming in.
Yeah, I mean that all kind of makes sense regarding the follow-up funding and the shift in regards to what investors are kind of like valuing in determining a deal's scalability or
Yeah.
potential and all that. And yeah, that's kind of been a recurring statement from different investors that we had on, and other founders that are had multiple exits and are working on new projects. It's definitely shifted where the investors are much more focused on revenue and product validation that demonstrates the more of the operational side of things, with the founders putting a priority on revenue and sustainability for their company. So I think that's a really good insight to bring up again and highlight to anyone that might be listening as a founder. Focus on revenue. It's something that you should be able to do on day one if you're providing people, again, with an enjoyable experience and benefits. If you do that, they're going to value it. They'll be willing to pay. So yeah, good insights. Boyan, have any follow-ups, any questions?
Yeah, just was thinking, in case a customer, as example, has some, more sensitive intellectual property and stuff like that, and considering that this is effectively more or less outsourcing to some extent company, uh, how exactly intellectual property is being protected in this type of context? I mean, how
Yeah.
it is guarded?
Yeah, I mean that's actually a really good point, because with founders and sort of their babies that they've been working on, or maybe working on and sort of have put a lot of love and resources and time into it. Usually beginning in our engagement, we sign an agreement and then sign an NDA. Again, I mean, it's an agreement. I think in our obviously engagement agreements, protection of intellectual property is a core part. Anything we develop is part. This belongs to our customers. But the core philosophy, really, I think you can put a lot of paperwork and legal framework around things. At the end, you really have to protect, and you have to have the resources to protect your intellectual property. I've seen that myself in a previous company where we had all the paperwork in place, and yet the IP got ripped by a big investment bank. I think our core strength, our core focus on Tulaco is really, that's our bread and butter. If we would go out there and rip IP from people that we work with, we wouldn't be around for 15 years. That would the ship would go under in 2 months or 6 months, and word would get around in the ecosystem and in the industry. It's a small community, specifically here in LA. You run into the same people. People are connected. I think that's legal paperwork and legal protection is really important. I can only encourage to put that in place. But I think from our perspective, that's really part of our bread and butter, making sure that any IP, any concept, any ideas are not proliferating out there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for our customers. It wouldn't be good for our network reputation. And in the end, it wouldn't be good for the company. And we probably wouldn't have been around for 15 years if there would be any attempt of ripping off any ideas or steal intellectual property and not treat it as sensitive as possible. And I think we've done a really good job with that over the last 15 years. And people have been, as I mentioned, 90% of our clients are coming through referrals of the network. So hopefully that says something, at least from our perspective. But there, I can see for a founder that has an idea, that has really something that they believe in, and that they have tested the concept, so that they can be very sensitive to working with outsourcing company. I can definitely see that. But for us, I really think that's, if we would be ripping off IP, we would have gone under 10 years ago, or even
Yeah.
probably longer.
Yeah, that's a great question for sure, Boyne, to bring up and address. And yeah, I like how you put it too, like their babies and how they're protective of that. It's something where a lot of founders go a little bit extreme with being, paranoid, go too far with it. But you're talking about that right balance, especially in a situation where you're being brought in as contractors to build these things and make their ideas tangible. So it's incredibly important to be aware of and approach appropriately. Um, I'm curious too,
Just
because
one thought to that. I think it's the same when you send your pitch deck to a VC. I think they're getting lots of great ideas every day in their pipeline. They're looking at it, and I think if they would be going out and actually then hiring their preferred outsourcing partner and just turn an pitch deck into an actual product, or try to, they wouldn't be around either, and that sort of that whole ecosystem would collapse, and very similar with the outsourcing ecosystem.
yeah, for sure. There's also like two different elements at play as well, where you, your agency, your shop, and an investor, it's not their baby. It's not their idea. They don't care. They don't want to pursue it. They don't want to do the work. They want to do very specific work. You want to do very specific work to generate revenue and income. And investors want to do the same thing. They want to put money into it and let you do all the work. So it's kind of like a non-issue in a lot of these cases. So yeah, it's always good to kind of like practice empathy and think from their perspective what their agenda is, and what kind of protections make sense. And like if you're sending off a pitch deck, you don't need to send an NDA, because you shouldn't be including any like trade secrets or anything like that, which an NDA could even protect in your pitch deck. Maybe during due diligence, when you're getting into like the nitty gritty, you're sharing your algorithm with an investor. But yeah, some of these things again, like is just premature or misused, and it's linked to paranoia in a lot of cases. But you mentioned that your business is 90% referrals through people that you've worked with or people you know. I think that's amazing. Not just the rate, like how high that number is, but that it's the core kind of like lead generator for your business. I'm interested. How has that been achieved? How has it gotten to 90% and become the primary focus of your business pipeline?
I think historically it was really just with the two co-founders, Steve and Alex, that worked in the space and had basically pulled off their own two startups and built the network, and they were bought out by bigger organizations, and then were with those organizations for a couple of years as part of the agreements, and then built an additional network, grow the network. And that's sort of the initial idea of Tulaco, when people that were in the space were looking like, hey, you guys have used these resources offshore in Eastern Europe. Can you help me to get in touch with them as well? Or is there a way that we can work out a way to utilize them and leverage them? And that was the idea of basically Tulaco. That has, I think, also grown organically the same way our network has grown organically. And I think Steve and Alex have done a really good job of curating the network, the client base, making sure that we pick the right projects that we can deliver on, and not just the fly-by-night operation of like, 3 month project. This is the budget. We're going to build you something, then deliver, and not can't really deliver or don't really deliver. It was really our focus always. Initially, what I mentioned with the culture and fit, trying to make sure there is a fit between the two organizations and entities, and grow long term. That has really become sort of the multiplicator of where Tulaco is today.
Yeah, I love that, and it touches on a lot of other kind of uh, recurring themes and bits of advice in regards to focusing on your network and being strategic and intentional with everything you do. Like every strategy, every plan, every action, it should be in alignment with, your mission, your values, your culture, but also what those goals are, what your milestones are, and what you're talking about in regards to curating the clientele and making sure you're picking the right type of people to work with and the right projects to, grow the company in the right direction and really kind of stand out from other shops is just, yeah, invaluable insight to share with people. So I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Boy, do you have any final questions? Because we're up on time. We're a little bit over actually. So yeah, thank you for that, Lars.
So I think
Oh,
we,
absolutely. It was been great.
yeah, I think we covered quite a lot of ground here. So yeah, it was a fantastic session, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, same here. And thanks for everybody that contributed. Reed, William. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lars. Any final thoughts or little announcements you want to share with the community? Now's the time.
No, I mean this was my first session here. Hopefully not the last. Hopefully next time we'll have another one, couple of weeks down the road or a couple of months down the road. Yeah, really looking forward to maybe meet all of you at maybe a VIP lunch that Gary's organizing. I think the next one is what, the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll be there. Happy to connect. Maybe we'll see each other at another networking event in the area. That's sort of what I'm doing, attending these different networking events, getting the word out there for Tulaco and building our network. Um, I don't know if this is organically through client referrals, but basically putting the word out. What I actually want to go back to, maybe if we have another minute, we have never done really on any online advertising. It doesn't work for us. Maybe it's wrong, and maybe the company could have grown more and be bigger right now. But it's really it worked out with the network referrals. We're always like thinking, is it the chicken and the egg? Should we just do the online advertisement? We have never really cracked that egg. So. Um, I mean, that's sort of feedback. We tried it, and we know other agencies that are heavily invested on salespeople and digital strategies, marketing strategies. So never worked for us. The I think the problems we're trying to solve for our customers are very intricate. It's really high touch interactions that we're doing there, and customizing. We have a lot sort of more of like a boutique approach, and selecting the right fits for us worked long time. So hopefully we'll be able to maybe talk about your projects at one of these networking events and see if there's a fit and how we can potentially help.
Fantastic. I would love to have you back. This was a lot of fun. Great conversations. Yeah, thank you, Boyan, William. Yeah, you guys are great. So with that, catch you guys all later. I'm going to be doing a pitch to your peers event a little bit later today at 3 o'clock. So feel free to jump in on that if you guys want to go over landing pages or pitches. But yeah, catch you guys all later. Thanks again.